Hello everyone, and welcome back to another video from Gone Legends. In today's video, we'll be highlighting American celebrities who passed away today, and in recent days, along with other notable individuals from around the world. Before we proceed, we kindly ask for your support. If you find these tributes meaningful, please take a moment to like this video. It truly means a lot to us. Thank you for being here. And now, let's begin. 1.
Miroslav Krawczyk passed away on February 21, 2026, at the age of 72 after a prolonged battle with cancer. His death marked a solemn day for Polish cinema and theater, where his presence had long been a symbol of artistic integrity. Born in 1953 in Poland, Krawczyk grew up in a nation shaped by political tension and cultural resilience. From an early age, he was drawn to the stage, finding in performance a powerful means of expression during complex times. He trained formally in classical theater, developing a style rooted in emotional honesty and intellectual depth. Over the decades, he became known for portraying layered characters, men burdened by history, family, and moral conflict. His performances were subtle, yet commanding, often reflecting the struggles and strength of the Polish people. Even as illness quietly shadowed his later years, he remained devoted to his craft, appearing in select roles and mentoring young actors. His passing after complications related to cancer ended a career that spanned generations, but his artistic legacy endures in the films and theatrical productions that continue to inspire audiences across Poland.
2.
Ronelle Whittaker. Ronelle Whittaker died on February 21, 2026, at the age of 46 due to cardiac arrest. The suddenness of his passing stunned the American football community and those who had followed his journey from promising athlete to professional competitor. Born in 1979 in the United States, Whittaker discovered football as a young boy and quickly stood out for his speed and focus. As a cornerback, he earned recognition for his sharp defensive instincts and relentless energy on the field. His path to the National Football League was paved with determination, discipline, and unwavering belief in his abilities. Beyond the stadium lights, Whittaker was admired for his humility and commitment to mentoring young athletes. His unexpected death from cardiac arrest served as a painful reminder of life's unpredictability. Though his career may be remembered in game highlights and statistics, those who knew him speak most of his character. His quiet leadership and dedication to family and community. His legacy lives on in the inspiration he provided to aspiring players who saw in him a model of perseverance.
3.
Angela Luce passed away on February 20, 2026, at the age of 87 from complications related to natural causes associated with advanced age. Her death signaled the closing of a cherished chapter in Italian music and cinema. Born in 1938 in Naples, Italy, Luce grew up immersed in the passionate rhythms of Neapolitan culture. Her powerful, emotive voice first brought her recognition as a singer, captivating audiences with performances steeped in authenticity and heartfelt expression. She later transitioned into acting, where her presence on screen carried the same intensity and sincerity that defined her music. Throughout the 1960s and beyond, she appeared in numerous Italian films, portraying women of resilience and emotional depth. Her career spanned decades, witnessing shifts in artistic trends while remaining true to her roots. Passing peacefully due to age-related health decline, Angela Luce left behind a cultural legacy treasured by generations. Her recordings and performances continue to echo the soul of Naples, preserving her voice as an enduring symbol of Italian artistic tradition.
4.
Bill Mazeroski died on February 20, 2026, at the age of 89 due to complications related to pneumonia. His passing marked a historic loss for American baseball. Born in 1936 in Pennsylvania, Mazeroski grew up with an unwavering love for the game that would define his life. Spending the majority of his career with the Pittsburgh Pirates, he became renowned as one of the finest defensive second basemen in Major League Baseball history. His precise glove work and unmatched ability to turn double plays earned him lasting respect. Yet it was his unforgettable walk-off home run in Game 7 of the 1960 World Series that immortalized him in sports lore. That single swing secured a championship and etched his name permanently into baseball history. Even in retirement, he remained connected to the sport, attending events and inspiring younger generations. His death from pneumonia-related complications closed the life of a Hall of Famer whose dedication and loyalty exemplified the spirit of the game. His legacy continues to live on in the hearts of baseball fans everywhere.
5.
Eric Dane. Eric Dane passed away on February 19, 2026, at the age of 53 due to complications from amyotrophic lateral sclerosis, widely known as ALS. The progressive neurodegenerative disease gradually weakened his muscles while leaving his mind fully aware, making his battle both physically and emotionally challenging. Born in 1972 in the United States, Dane rose to fame through television, earning widespread recognition for his charismatic and emotionally layered performances. His roles often portrayed confident yet vulnerable characters, resonating deeply with audiences around the world. After publicly revealing his ALS diagnosis, he approached his illness with remarkable honesty and courage, helping raise awareness about the disease. As his condition progressed, he faced immense physical limitations but continued to inspire fans through his resilience. His death from ALS complications deeply affected colleagues and viewers alike, who admired not only his talent but also his strength in adversity. Eric Dane's legacy remains preserved in the performances that brought him fame and in the courage he demonstrated during his final years, reminding the world that dignity can endure even in the face of devastating illness.
6.
Leo Rosas. Leo Rosas passed away on February 15, 2026, at just 27 years old, following complications from a sudden and severe respiratory infection that led to acute respiratory failure. His death shocked fans across Latin America, where he had become a symbol of youthful promise and international possibility. Born in 1998 in Bolivia, Leo grew up in a humble household where music was not simply entertainment, but a daily companion. From childhood, his voice carried uncommon strength and clarity, and it quickly became evident that he possessed rare talent. His breakthrough came when he competed in the major international singing competition, where his emotional performances and powerful vocal range captivated millions. Winning the competition elevated him to instant recognition, and he proudly carried the Bolivian flag onto a global stage. His music blended passion with sincerity, resonating deeply with young dreamers who saw in him their own aspirations. Though his career was still unfolding, he had already begun recording and performing internationally. His untimely death from respiratory complications left a painful sense of unfinished chapters, yet his voice continues to echo in recordings that preserve the passion and hope he embodied.
7.
Anna Rana Lee. Anna Rana Lee passed away on February 14, 2026, at the age of 84 due to complications related to heart failure. Her passing marked the farewell of a figure who represented elegance and versatility within Italian entertainment. Born in 1941 in Italy, Ranalli entered public life as a model during a period when Italian fashion and cinema were flourishing worldwide. Her striking presence quickly earned her attention, but it was her ambition that carried her further. She transitioned into singing and acting, embracing opportunities that showcased both her artistic sensitivity and her determination. Throughout the 1960s and 1970s, she appeared in films and musical productions that reflected the glamour and cultural vibrancy of the era. She worked diligently to establish herself as more than a visual icon, earning respect for her professionalism and adaptability. As the decades passed, she remained a cherished symbol of a golden age in Italian media. Her death from heart-related complications brought an end to a life that spanned dramatic cultural changes. Yet her image and performances remain timeless reminders of an era defined by style and creative ambition.
8.
Lambert Hamill. Lambert Hamill died on February 13, 2026, at the age of 85, following complications from a long-term cardiovascular illness. His passing was deeply felt within Germany's theatrical and television communities, where he had spent decades shaping dramatic storytelling. Born in 1940 in Germany, Hamill grew up during a time of national reconstruction when art played a crucial role in redefining identity and cultural dialogue. Drawn to performance early in life, he pursued formal training and became particularly known for his work on stage. His acting style was thoughtful and restrained, relying on subtle expression rather than theatrical excess. Over the years, he became a respected figure in German theater, earning admiration for his intellectual depth and emotional authenticity. In television productions, he appeared as authoritative yet human characters, often portraying figures grappling with moral complexity. Even as health challenges emerged in his later years, he remained connected to the artistic community that had defined his life. His death from cardiovascular complications marked the end of a distinguished career rooted in discipline and artistic integrity, leaving behind performances that continue to influence German dramatic arts.
9.
Robert Duvall. Robert Duvall passed away on February 15, 2026, at the age of 95 due to natural causes associated with advanced age. His death signaled the closing of one of the most remarkable chapters in American cinematic history. Born in 1931 in the United States, Duvall grew up with a strong sense of discipline and storytelling tradition. After studying acting and honing his craft in theater, he built a film career that would span more than 6 decades. He became renowned for his extraordinary versatility, portraying complex and deeply human characters across a wide range of genres. From powerful military figures to vulnerable patriarchs, his performances carried authenticity and emotional precision. He earned numerous awards, including an Academy Award, and became widely regarded as one of the greatest actors of his generation. Even in his later years, his presence commanded respect within the industry. His passing due to age-related causes marked the natural conclusion of a long and influential life. Robert Duvall's legacy lives on through the films that continue to inspire audiences and filmmakers alike, ensuring that his artistry remains immortal within the history of cinema.
10.
Thomas Cruise Mapother IV was born on July 3, 1962, in Syracuse, New York, and the life he entered was far from glamorous. His childhood was not built on security or privilege. It was built on tension, movement, and emotional uncertainty that would shape him in ways the world would not understand for decades. His father, Thomas Cruise Mapother III, worked as an electrical engineer and carried himself with strict authority inside the household. Intelligence was present, but warmth was scarce. In later interviews, Tom Cruise would describe his father as controlling and intimidating, a man whose unpredictability made home feel less like a sanctuary and more like a place where caution was necessary. A child raised in that environment learns quickly how to read moods, how to anticipate anger, and how to protect himself emotionally. Those early lessons stay embedded deep within the psyche. They do not disappear when fame arrives. Adding to the emotional strain was constant relocation. The family moved from New York to Kentucky, then to New Jersey, and eventually to Canada. New schools became routine. New teachers, new classmates, new expectations. Stability never lasted long enough to feel permanent. Every time young Tom began to adjust, another move would uproot him. For a child, repeated displacement quietly chips away at a sense of belonging. Friendships fade. Familiar hallways vanish. Identity feels fragile when everything around you keeps changing. But perhaps the most painful struggle during those early years was something far less visible. Tom Cruise battled dyslexia, a learning disorder that made reading and processing words extraordinarily difficult. In the 1970s, awareness and understanding of learning disabilities were limited. Children who struggled were often misunderstood or labeled unfairly. In classrooms, when teachers asked students to read aloud, his heart would race. Letters seemed to blur together on the page. Words refused to cooperate. Embarrassment settled in. He later admitted that during those years he felt unintelligent, as though he were somehow broken. Imagine being a young boy sitting at a desk, watching other children read fluently while you struggle to decode a single paragraph. Imagine believing that something is wrong with you because the world around you moves faster than you can keep up with. That feeling of inadequacy can carve deep wounds into a developing mind. It can create a relentless desire to prove oneself later in life. When Tom was 12 years old, the fragile structure of his family life collapsed further. His mother, Mary Lee, made the courageous decision to leave his father and take her 4 children away from that tense environment. Divorce brought relief from fear, but it introduced financial hardship. Mary Lee worked multiple jobs to support the family. Money was tight. Stability remained uncertain. Tom watched his mother struggle, and something shifted inside him. He became protective and determined. The boy who once felt powerless began developing a quiet internal promise that he would not remain small forever. During his teenage years, he searched for direction wherever he could find it. For a time, he considered entering the Catholic priesthood and enrolled in a seminary in Cincinnati on scholarship. Perhaps faith seemed like structure. Perhaps discipline felt comforting after years of chaos, but that path did not last. He left the seminary and returned to high school life, still uncertain about his future. He turned to wrestling next, channeling his energy into something physical and controlled. Wrestling offered discipline, measurable progress, and a clear sense of competition, but even that outlet was taken away when a knee injury ended his participation. Once again, a door closed. Once again, something he leaned on disappeared. If you look closely at the pattern of his early life, you see repeated disruption. Home instability, academic struggle, financial hardship, abandoned dreams. Each experience could have broken a less resilient spirit, but instead, they began forging something else inside him. Acting entered his life almost unexpectedly. A teacher encouraged him to audition for a school production. He stepped onto the stage without fully understanding how transformative that moment would become. Under the lights, something awakened. For the first time, he felt fully present and powerful. On stage, he could become someone else. He could escape the labels that haunted him. He could control the narrative. The applause that followed his performance was more than approval. It was validation. It was confirmation that he was capable, that he had value, that he was not defined by dyslexia or by the instability of his upbringing. Acting gave him a voice that he had struggled to find in classrooms and at home. By the time he turned 18, that spark had grown into determination. He made the bold decision to move to New York City and pursue acting professionally. He had little money and no guarantees. The entertainment industry is unforgiving to newcomers, especially those without connections. But Tom Cruise carried something powerful with him into that uncertain future. He carried resilience forged in childhood hardship. He carried a hunger to prove himself to a world that had once made him feel inadequate. What the world would later see as confidence and intensity was rooted in those early struggles. The relentless drive, the perfectionism, the refusal to accept mediocrity all trace back to the boy who once struggled to read a single page without fear. His childhood was not a fairy tale beginning. It was a crucible. And from that crucible emerged a young man determined to rewrite his story. The darkness came first. The spotlight would arrive much later, and the journey from one to the other would test him in ways he could never have imagined. When Tom Cruise arrived in New York City at 18 years old, he carried 2 things with him: ambition and insecurity. Ambition pushed him forward, but insecurity whispered constantly in the background. The entertainment industry is not designed to nurture fragile confidence. It tests it. It strips it. It exposes it. He began attending auditions relentlessly. Casting offices became familiar territory. Waiting rooms filled with other hopeful actors became silent arenas of competition. Every young man in those rooms believed he could be the next big star. Every one of them carried the same hunger. Rejection was not dramatic. It was routine. Calls that never came back. Smiles that meant nothing. Promises that dissolved into silence. But Tom Cruise had already survived instability. academic humiliation, and emotional tension at home. Compared to that, rejection felt familiar. Pain was not new territory. What mattered was endurance. His first film appearances were small but noticeable. In 1981, he had a minor role in Endless Love. It was brief, but industry insiders began to see something unusual in him. His energy did not fade into the background. Even with limited screen time, he projected intensity. Then came Taps and The Outsiders. Surrounded by young rising talents, he did not disappear. He leaned forward into every scene as if determined never to be overlooked again. Then, in 1983, Risky Business arrived. The film was modestly budgeted, but its impact was explosive. Cruise, just 21 years old, carried the story with bold charm and confidence. The now famous scene of him dancing in a white shirt and socks became iconic almost instantly. But beyond the humor and charisma, audiences sensed something electric. He was not simply acting. He was committing, fully, fearlessly. Overnight, he was no longer an unknown actor. He was a rising star. Sudden fame is often portrayed as a dream come true, but it carries a weight that few are prepared for. Expectations multiply. Opportunities increase, but so does scrutiny. Every interview becomes analysis. Every public appearance becomes judgment. The boy who once struggled with dyslexia was now facing a global audience. In 1986, Top Gun changed everything. As Pete Maverick Mitchell, Tom Cruise embodied confidence, rebellion, and charm. The film was a cultural phenomenon. It dominated the box office and turned Cruise into an international sensation. His face was everywhere. Posters, magazine covers, television appearances. He was no longer simply an actor. He was a symbol of a generation. But with global fame came immense pressure. Hollywood has a short memory. It builds stars quickly and replaces them even faster. Cruise understood this deeply. He knew that one wrong choice could reduce him to a passing trend. So instead of repeating the same charismatic roles, he made calculated decisions. In 1988, he starred in Rain Man alongside Dustin Hoffman. Sharing the screen with an actor of Hoffman's caliber was a risk. If he failed to match the emotional depth required, critics would dismantle him. Instead, he delivered a layered performance that revealed vulnerability beneath arrogance. The film won the Academy Award for Best Picture. Cruise was no longer just a box office draw. He was respected. Then came Born on the 4th of July in 1989, where he portrayed Vietnam veteran Ron Kovacs. The transformation was dramatic. Gone was the carefree charm. In its place stood raw pain and physical limitation. The role demanded emotional intensity and humility. Cruise immersed himself completely. The performance earned him his first Academy Award nomination. But as his professional life soared, his personal life grew increasingly complex. He married actress Mimi Rogers in 1987. Their relationship drew media attention from the start. Two rising Hollywood figures navigating fame together. Yet by 1990, the marriage ended in divorce. Publicly, it appeared as another short-lived celebrity relationship. Privately, divorce leaves emotional scars that no level of fame can soften. That same year, he met Nicole Kidman on the set of Days of Thunder. Their chemistry was undeniable. They married quickly and became one of Hollywood's most glamorous couples. Together, they adopted 2 children. Their image symbolized success, beauty, and power. But fame does not protect relationships. It magnifies pressure. Long filming schedules, public scrutiny, media speculation. Maintaining intimacy while living under constant observation is not simple. Every disagreement risks becoming a headline. Every private decision becomes public curiosity. Throughout the 1990s, Cruise's career continued its upward trajectory. A Few Good Men showcased his ability to hold his ground opposite Jack Nicholson. Jerry Maguire revealed vulnerability and earned him another Academy Award nomination. Interview with the Vampire displayed a darker, more seductive edge. Yet behind the camera, something deeper was evolving. Control. Perhaps rooted in a childhood marked by instability, Cruise developed an intense need for control over his work. He became deeply involved in production decisions. He studied scripts obsessively. He pushed directors for perfection. Some admired his discipline. Others found it exhausting. Perfectionism became his armor. In 1996, he took one of the biggest risks of his career. He launched Mission Impossible not only as its lead actor, but also as producer. This was no longer about accepting roles offered to him. It was about shaping an entire franchise. The first film was a massive success, but Cruise insisted on performing his own stunts, hanging from ceilings, running through explosions, executing physically demanding sequences himself. Why risk injury when he had already achieved global fame? Perhaps because success alone was not enough. He needed authenticity. He needed to prove again and again that he was more than image. But the higher he climbed, the thinner the air became. The early 2000s would bring a different kind of storm. Not about acting ability, not about box office numbers. It would be about public perception, about personal beliefs, about moments that would threaten everything he had built. The world that once adored him would begin to question him, and for the first time since childhood, he would face something he could not control. Fame can elevate a person to unimaginable heights, but it can also turn without warning. One moment, you are celebrated. The next, you are questioned, and sometimes the shift happens so quickly that even the strongest footing begins to tremble. By the early 2000s, Tom Cruise stood at the peak of Hollywood power. The Mission Impossible franchise was thriving. His films were box office events. His name alone guaranteed global attention. He was no longer just a movie star. He was an institution. But institutions can crack. In 2001, his marriage to Nicole Kidman ended in divorce after more than a decade together. To the public, they had seemed unshakable, a golden couple navigating fame side by side. The separation shocked fans. Headlines multiplied. Speculation filled tabloids. The world wanted explanations, but personal grief rarely translates cleanly into public statements. Divorce is never easy. It is a dismantling of shared dreams and shared futures. For someone living under relentless media scrutiny, the pain becomes magnified. Private conversations become public debates. Emotional wounds are analyzed by strangers. Yet Cruise did what he had always done. He returned to work. But work alone could not shield him from what was coming next. In 2005, during promotional appearances for War of the Worlds, something shifted in the public narrative surrounding him. His relationship with actress Katie Holmes became headline news almost immediately. The romance moved quickly, intensely, and visibly. Interviews were exuberant. Energy was high. Emotions were worn openly. Then came the moment that would be replayed endlessly across television screens, his appearance on The Oprah Winfrey Show. In a burst of excitement, he jumped onto the couch, declaring his love for Holmes with unrestrained enthusiasm. What might have been interpreted as joy in another context became a cultural turning point. The internet amplified the moment. Talk shows mocked it. Commentators dissected it. Overnight, the tone of media coverage shifted. The narrative changed from admiration to curiosity, from curiosity to skepticism. Soon after, his public defense of his beliefs and criticisms of psychiatric medication during a televised interview ignited further controversy. The conversation was intense. His passion was unmistakable, but in the court of public opinion, nuance is often lost. For the first time in decades, the question surfaced. Had Tom Cruise lost touch? The same intensity that had fueled his performances now appeared overwhelming to some audiences. The same confidence that had defined his career was reinterpreted as excess. The tide of public sentiment is unpredictable. It can crown and condemn with equal speed. Studios began to worry. Industry executives wondered whether his image had become a liability. In 2006, reports emerged that his long-standing partnership with Paramount Pictures was ending. Publicly, there were statements about performance and behavior. Privately, the message felt clear. Even giants can be distanced. For a man whose life had been driven by control and precision, this was different. This was not a failed audition or a critical review. This was a shift in public trust. The world that once applauded now questioned. But beneath the headlines, beneath the late-night jokes, beneath the viral clips, there was still the same person shaped by early instability and relentless resilience. The boy who had moved from school to school. The teenager who had felt academically inadequate. The young man who had faced rejection in audition rooms. He had been doubted before. This time, the stakes were simply higher. In 2006, he married Katie Holmes. That same year, they welcomed their daughter, Suri Cruz. Fatherhood added another layer to his life. Protective instinct deepened. Public attention intensified. Photographers followed relentlessly. Every family outing became a spectacle. For a time, he retreated from excessive interviews. He allowed his work to speak again. Mission Impossible 3 performed solidly. Then came Tropic Thunder in 2008, where he surprised audiences with a bold comedic performance as studio executive Leigh Grossman. The role was unexpected, self-aware, and wildly different from his usual image. It was a strategic move showing the world that he could laugh at himself. Gradually, the tone began to soften, but life would test him again. In 2012, after 6 years of marriage, Katie Holmes filed for divorce. The separation was swift and intensely private. Once again, headlines exploded. Once again, speculation surged. For a man who had dedicated so much of his life to maintaining control, personal relationships seemed to remain the one territory where outcomes could not be scripted. 3 marriages, 3 divorces. Behind the glamour, behind the premieres, there was personal heartbreak, and yet he did not disappear. He returned to the only place where control felt tangible, the film set. With each new mission, impossible installment, the stunts became more extreme. Clinging to the outside of an Airbus aircraft during takeoff, scaling the Burj Khalifa in Dubai, executing high-speed motorcycle chases, training for months to master complex aerial sequences. These were not marketing gimmicks. They were statements. Statements that he was still here. Statements that he would still hear. Statements that he would not be defined by controversy. Statements that risk did not frighten him, perhaps because risk had always been part of his life, from unstable childhood foundations to career-threatening public backlash. When Top Gun: Maverick was finally released in 2022, more than 3 decades after the original, it became one of the highest-grossing films of his career. Critics praised it. Audiences embraced it. The film was seen as a triumphant return, not just for a character, but for the actor himself. It was proof that longevity in Hollywood is not accidental. It is earned. Tom Cruise's story is not a simple arc of uninterrupted success. It is a cycle of ascent, challenge, adaptation, and resurgence. He has been adored, he has been doubted, he has been scrutinized, he has been applauded again. And through it all, he has remained relentless. The shadows of childhood instability shaped his hunger. The controversies of fame tested his resilience. The losses in his personal life deepened his complexity. He is not merely a movie star who performs daring stunts. He is a man who has repeatedly rebuilt himself under public observation, and perhaps that is why he still runs across rooftops, through explosions, toward horizons that seem impossible to reach. Because stopping has never been part of his story. When the storm of controversy began to quiet, it did not leave behind silence. It left behind a question: was Tom Cruise still the last true movie star, or had his time passed? Hollywood is not sentimental. It does not reward past glory. It measures relevance in ticket sales and audience loyalty. After years of public scrutiny, after the divorces, the viral interviews, and the headlines that questioned his stability, Cruise understood something critical. If he wanted to remain powerful, he would have to rebuild not just his image, but his dominance. And he would do it the only way he knew how: through work. But not ordinary work. through spectacles so undeniable that even critics would have to look up. The Mission Impossible franchise became his proving ground. What had begun in 1996 as a bold producing gamble was now evolving into something far greater. With each new installment, Cruise pushed the limits further. Not for headlines, not for shock value, but because he believed in the theatrical experience. He believed audiences deserved authenticity. In Mission Impossible Ghost Protocol, he climbed the Burj Khalifa in Dubai, the tallest building in the world. No digital trickery, no distant camera illusions. He was physically suspended against glass hundreds of meters above the ground. One slip would not mean a retake. It would mean catastrophe. Why would someone worth hundreds of millions of dollars risk his life for a scene? The answer lies deeper than adrenaline. Control, commitment, and perhaps something even more personal. A refusal to ever appear weak again. The boy who once felt powerless in classrooms and unstable homes had grown into a man who would hang from skyscrapers to prove his strength. Each stunt became symbolic. He was not falling. He was climbing. Then came Rogue Nation. Then Fallout. In Fallout, he performed a halo jump from 25,000 feet, trained extensively to pilot helicopters himself for intense aerial chase sequences, and broke his ankle during a rooftop jump, a fracture captured on camera. Many actors would have paused production for months. Cruise insisted on continuing after recovery, pushing forward to complete the film. Pain did not stop him. It never had. But beyond the stunts, something else was happening. He was becoming a defender of cinema itself. As streaming platforms grew and theatrical releases faced uncertainty, Cruise remained fiercely loyal to the big screen. He believed movies were meant to be experienced in dark theaters, surrounded by strangers sharing a collective emotional journey. When the global pandemic forced cinemas to close and delayed major releases, Top Gun: Maverick was postponed multiple times rather than being sent directly to streaming. He waited. Studios hesitated. The industry shifted. But Cruise refused to compromise on what he believed in. And in 2022, when Top Gun: Maverick finally soared into theaters, it became a phenomenon. Critics praised its emotional weight. Audiences returned to cinemas in massive numbers. The film grossed over $1 billion worldwide. It was not just a sequel. It was a statement that theatrical cinema still mattered, a statement that Tom Cruise still mattered. The performance carried emotional maturity. Maverick was no longer the reckless young pilot. He was older, reflective, carrying regret, carrying memory, carrying loss. In many ways, the character mirrored Cruise himself, a man no longer trying to prove youth, but proving endurance. The world saw the spectacle, but beneath it was something more profound: longevity. Very few actors maintain relevance across 4 decades. Fewer still remain box office leaders into their 60s. Cruise did not merely survive Hollywood's shifting tides, he mastered them. Yet personal life remained guarded. After his divorce from Katie Holmes in 2012, he became increasingly private. Public appearances centered on work, interviews focused on filmmaking. The once overexposed celebrity learned discretion. Perhaps experience had taught him that some parts of life must remain untouched by cameras. There is a paradox in Tom Cruise's story. He is one of the most visible figures in the world, yet one of the most guarded. Audiences feel they know him because they have watched him for decades, but the man behind the intensity remains largely unseen. What drives him now? It may no longer be proving critics wrong. It may no longer be chasing validation. It may simply be devotion. Devotion to craft, devotion to discipline, devotion to the magic of cinema. Directors who have worked with him often describe an almost superhuman work ethic. Early mornings, rigorous physical training, endless rehearsals, detailed planning. He approaches filmmaking like an athlete approaches the Olympics. Precision is not optional. It is mandatory. And perhaps that mindset traces back to dyslexia, to the child who once struggled to process text. Acting became his language. Cinema became his expression. Physicality became his expression. Physicality became his communication. Running, jumping, climbing. These are not just stunts. They are statements of fluency. Tom Cruise is now in his 60s, yet he continues to train for increasingly complex sequences. Mission: Impossible Dead Reckoning pushed the envelope again, featuring one of the most dangerous motorcycle cliff jumps ever attempted in cinema. Months of preparation, thousands of practice repetitions, absolute focus. He does not rely on digital convenience. He insists on realism, not because it is easy, because it is hard, because difficulty proves something. And that may be the core of his identity, a man shaped by instability who built certainty through discipline. A boy once doubted who constructed excellence through repetition. A star who faced public backlash and rebuilt his empire through persistence. His legacy is no longer defined only by box office numbers. It is defined by endurance, by refusal to fade quietly, by an unwavering belief that cinema deserves effort. He has been misunderstood. He has been criticized. He has been celebrated. But above all, he has been relentless. The shadows of childhood shaped him. The storms of fame tested him. The controversies challenged him. Yet he remained standing, not because he avoided adversity, but because he faced it head-on. And in that defiance, perhaps, lies the true reason Tom Cruise endures. As the years moved forward and the spectacle continued to grow, something quieter began to define Tom Cruise's legacy. It was no longer only about speed or danger or box office numbers. It was about discipline, about ritual, about the almost obsessive structure that shaped every aspect of his professional life. Those who have worked closely with him often describe a man who approaches filmmaking like a mission in itself. He wakes early. He trains relentlessly. He studies every frame of a script as though it were a blueprint for survival. Physical conditioning is not seasonal for him. It is constant. Diet, endurance training, aerial lessons, motorcycle mastery. Free-fall simulations he prepares months, sometimes years, for sequences that will last only seconds on screen. This is not vanity. This is philosophy. For Tom Cruise, performance is responsibility. He has often spoken about entertaining audiences not as a casual obligation, but as a sacred trust. People spend their hard-earned money, sit in dark theaters, and give 2 hours of their lives to a story. In his mind, that demands excellence. And perhaps that belief stems from remembering what it felt like to be that boy sitting in a movie theater, escaping a chaotic home for a couple of precious hours. Cinema was not just distraction. It was refuge. It was order. It was imagination without fear. He understands that power. Over 4 decades, Cruise has collaborated with some of the most respected directors in the world: Martin Scorsese in The Color of Money, Stanley Kubrick in Eyes Wide Shut, Steven Spielberg in Minority Report and War of the Worlds, Michael Mann in Collateral. Each partnership revealed different dimensions of his range. He was not limited to one genre. He was not confined to one persona. In Collateral, he played against type, a cold, calculating assassin with silver hair and emotionless precision. It was unsettling. Audiences who had grown used to his heroic image saw something darker. Critics praised the restraint and menace he brought to the role. It proved again that he was capable of transformation. In Magnolia, he portrayed a motivational speaker masking deep emotional trauma beneath aggressive charisma. The performance was intense and layered, earning him another Academy Award nomination. Beneath the bravado of the character lay vulnerability, a fragile child wounded by abandonment. It was a role that echoed pieces of his own narrative, though he never framed it that way publicly. What makes Cruise unique is not simply that he acts. It is that he commits entirely. There is no visible detachment, no hint of irony in the way he approaches his craft. He believes fully in the worlds he enters. That sincerity, sometimes misinterpreted as intensity, is actually consistency. Consistency across decades is rare. Many actors peak in their 20s. Others reinvent themselves once and fade. Cruise has reinvented himself repeatedly, while maintaining a core identity: driven, disciplined, ambitious. He rarely speaks publicly about regret. He rarely lingers on past controversies. Instead, he speaks about work, about audiences, about gratitude. When younger actors ask him for advice, he emphasizes preparation and respect. Respect for crews, respect for stunt teams, respect for writers and directors. He understands that filmmaking is collaboration, not ego. And yet, there is still mystery surrounding him. In an age when celebrities share every detail of their daily lives through social media, Tom Cruise remains comparatively private. He does not flood platforms with personal moments. He allows his work to carry his presence. The absence of constant exposure has preserved a certain aura, something reminiscent of classic Hollywood legends. Perhaps that is why many call him the last movie star. Not because others lack talent, but because few maintain that distance, that mystique, that unwavering dedication to theatrical spectacle. Financially, his films have grossed billions worldwide. Awards have accumulated. Honors from film academies and international organizations recognize his contribution to cinema, but numbers do not define endurance. Character does. Cruise's character, shaped by instability, sharpened by rejection, tested by controversy, has remained consistent in one regard: he refuses to surrender to decline. Age has not slowed him. In fact, it seems to have refined him. He no longer runs as a young man trying to prove himself. He runs as a veteran who understands the terrain. The lines on his face are not signs of fading relevance. They are markers of survival. There is something almost symbolic about the way he runs in so many films. It has become a signature: arms pumping, focused gaze, forward motion. It is not merely choreography, it is metaphor. He keeps moving, through heartbreak, through backlash, through injury, through time. Tom Cruise's story is not flawless. It is not untouched by controversy. It is not immune to criticism, but it is undeniably persistent. From a child who once doubted his own intelligence to a global figure who commands billion-dollar productions, his trajectory defies simplicity. He did not inherit stability. He constructed it. He did not inherit stability. He did not inherit confidence. He built it. He did not inherit reverence. He earned it repeatedly. And as he continues to prepare for future installments of Mission Impossible and other ambitious projects, the question is no longer whether he will succeed. The question is how long he can continue to defy expectation. Perhaps the real secret is not physical strength. Perhaps it is resilience. The same resilience that carried him through unstable childhood homes. The same resilience that carried him through public scrutiny. The same resilience that carries him now, into his 60s, still leaping from cliffs and piloting helicopters through narrow canyons. He is not chasing youth, he is chasing excellence. And excellence for him is not temporary. When history looks back at the era of modern cinema, it will not only measure box office numbers or count awards, it will search for figures who defined an age. It will search for those who carried the weight of an industry on their shoulders and refused to let it collapse under shifting trends. And somewhere in that conversation, one name will stand firmly in place: Tom Cruise. Not simply as an actor, but as a force. His career stretches across more than 4 decades, bridging generations of moviegoers. Parents who watched Top Gun in 1986 now sit beside their children watching Top Gun: Maverick. Teenagers who once imitated his confidence are now adults who have grown older alongside him. That kind of continuity is rare. It is not accidental. It is built through discipline and endurance. Cruise has often said that he never wanted to be just famous. He wanted to be good. Truly good. The distinction matters. Fame is fragile. Skill is sustainable. From his earliest roles, he studied not only his own performances, but the mechanics of filmmaking itself, camera placement, lighting, editing rhythms. He absorbed it all. Over time, he did not simply participate in the system. He mastered it. His influence extends beyond what audiences see on screen. Younger actors speak about the standard he set for preparation. Directors describe his involvement as collaborative rather than dominating. Stunt teams credit him for elevating their craft into something celebrated rather than hidden. He insisted that the dangerous work be respected, rehearsed, and executed safely but authentically. There is also something symbolic in his dedication to practical effects. In an era dominated by computer-generated imagery, Cruise repeatedly chooses physical risk. He climbs, he jumps, he flies. It is not nostalgia. It is philosophy. He believes that audiences can feel authenticity, even subconsciously, and he trusts that instinct. Trust has been a recurring theme in his life. Trust that he could overcome dyslexia. Trust that he could survive instability. Trust that he could rebuild after public criticism. Trust that the audience would eventually judge him by his work rather than his headlines. That trust has been rewarded. Yet for all his achievements, he remains human. Behind the stunts and premieres is a man who has experienced heartbreak, divorce, and the complexities of public life. The world has watched him celebrate love and endure separation. It has watched him rise and stumble and rise again. What separates him from many others is not that he avoided adversity. It is that he absorbed it. Each challenge seems to have deepened rather than diminished his resolve. When critics questioned his relevance, he responded with one of the most successful films of his career. When the industry shifted towards streaming, he stood firmly for theatrical release. When injury struck on set, he returned stronger. He does not retreat easily. There is an image that defines him running. Across rooftops, through crowded streets, toward danger. That run has become cinematic shorthand for urgency and commitment. But perhaps it represents something more personal. He runs because standing still was never an option in his childhood. Movement was survival. Adapting was survival. Proving himself was survival. Movement self was survival. Now, decades later, he still runs, not out of fear, but out of purpose. As he enters the later chapters of his career, there is a quiet transformation taking place. The characters he portrays carry wisdom and reflection. They are not invincible youths. They are seasoned figures aware of time's passage. In Top Gun: Maverick, his character confronts regret, responsibility, and mentorship. It mirrors reality. Cruise is no longer the newcomer. He is the veteran guiding the next generation. That evolution is powerful. It signals maturity. It signals acceptance of time without surrender to it. Hollywood will continue to change. New stars will emerge. Technology will advance. But the era shaped by Tom Cruise will remain distinct. He redefined the action hero as someone who does not merely look brave, but is brave. He transformed franchise filmmaking into a personal commitment. He demonstrated that controversy does not have to be the final chapter. He has been called intense, ambitious, disciplined, controversial, charismatic, private, relentless. Each label captures a piece of him, but none capture the whole. Perhaps the truest description is simple. He is driven by early insecurity, driven by a need to excel, driven by belief in cinema, driven by the memory of being underestimated. From a young boy struggling with dyslexia to a global icon commanding billion-dollar productions, his journey is not linear. It is layered with doubt and determination. It is marked by both admiration and scrutiny. And yet, through it all, he remains in motion. When the lights dim in the theater and his name appears on screen, there is still a surge of anticipation. Not because audiences expect comfort, but because they expect commitment. They expect effort. They expect the impossible. And for more than 40 years, Tom Cruise has delivered it. Not perfectly, not without scars, but relentlessly. His story is not just about fame. It is about resilience. It is about rebuilding. It is about resilience. It is about refusing to let early darkness define the final outcome. And as long as he continues to run toward the horizon, whether across rooftops or through new creative risks, the legacy of Tom Cruise will remain what it has always been. Motion. Unstoppable motion. There comes a moment in every long career when the question shifts. It is no longer about whether someone can rise. It becomes about whether they can endure. Endurance is quieter than success. It does not explode onto headlines the way box office records do. It settles slowly into reputation. It builds through consistency. And in the case of Tom Cruise, endurance has become the defining element of his legacy. As he moved into his late 50s and early 60s, an age when many action stars quietly transition into supporting roles or retire altogether, Cruise did the opposite. He intensified. He trained harder. He sought out stunts that appeared almost defiant in their danger. The motorcycle cliff jump in Mission: Impossible Dead Reckoning was not just a stunt, it was a declaration, months of preparation, thousands of repetitions, absolute precision, and one irreversible moment when he rode forward and disappeared over the edge of a mountain. That image carried symbolism far beyond the frame of a movie. It was a man refusing to let time dictate his limitations. Yet endurance is not only physical, it is emotional. It is psychological. To remain relevant in an industry that constantly replaces its heroes requires adaptability. Cruise has navigated changing trends, evolving audience expectations, and shifting media landscapes. He has embraced technology without surrendering authenticity. He has modernized his approach without erasing his core identity. He understands that survival in Hollywood is not accidental. It is strategic. Behind the scenes, he is deeply involved in production logistics, marketing strategies, and global release plans. He travels internationally to promote his films with genuine enthusiasm. He treats premieres in London, Tokyo, Seoul, and Sydney not as obligations but as celebrations. He meets fans with intensity and gratitude, signing autographs for hours, posing for photographs, acknowledging the people who made his career possible. This connection to audiences may be one of his most underrated strengths. While controversies once dominated headlines, his consistent engagement with fans gradually reshaped public perception. People began to see not just the intensity, but the dedication, not just the spectacle, but the gratitude. Gratitude changes narratives, and yet, even as his professional life reached extraordinary heights again, there remains a quiet awareness of time's inevitability. No one outruns it forever. The characters he now portrays carry a sense of reflection. In Top Gun: Maverick, Maverick confronts loss, mentorship, and the reality that he is no longer the youngest pilot in the room. It is a performance layered with restraint and maturity. The recklessness of youth is replaced by measured wisdom. Perhaps that is the true evolution of Tom Cruise, not the stunts, not the spectacle, but the transition from proving himself to understanding himself. He no longer needs to shout his worth. It is established. He no longer needs to silence critics. Time has done that. Instead, he appears focused on legacy, on preserving the cinematic experience, on inspiring a generation of filmmakers who value craft over convenience. There is something poetic about the arc of his life. A boy who once struggled to read now commands scripts that define global culture. A teenager who moved from school to school now anchors franchises that remain stable for decades. A young actor who feared obscurity now stands as one of the most recognizable figures on Earth. The early darkness did not vanish. It transformed. It became fuel. It became discipline. It became motion. Even now, as new projects are announced and future installments planned, he approaches each one with the same intensity that marked his earliest auditions. There is no visible complacency, no sense that he has done enough. For Tom Cruise, enough does not seem to exist, and perhaps that is why his story continues to resonate. It is not about perfection. It is about persistence. It is about waking up each day determined to give more than expected. It is about refusing to be defined by early labels or temporary backlash. He has lived through instability, divorce, injury, public doubt, and the relentless glare of fame. Through it all, he has maintained forward motion. There will come a day when he eventually slows down. Every runner must. But when that day arrives, it will not erase the miles already traveled. It will not diminish the risks taken. It will not silence the applause earned through decades of effort. Tom Cruise's life is not merely a Hollywood success story. It is a study in resilience. It is a testament to how early hardship can forge extraordinary determination. It is a reminder that reinvention is possible, even after public missteps. From Syracuse to skyscrapers, from dyslexia to dominance, from doubt to distinction, his journey has never been simple. It has never been linear, but it has always been driven, and as long as the cameras roll and audiences gather in darkened theaters, that drive will remain part of cinematic history. There is a strange transformation that happens when a person lives long enough in the public eye. They stop being just a human being. They become a symbol, an idea, a reflection of something larger than themselves. And over time, Tom Cruise stopped being simply an actor and became a symbol of relentless ambition in modern cinema. For decades, his face has been associated with velocity, risk, and unwavering commitment. But symbols can feel distant. They can feel untouchable. The real question, beneath the mythology, is this: who is the man beneath the motion? If you look closely at his journey, the pattern becomes clearer. Everything that defined his later success was born in early insecurity. A child who struggled academically became a man who over-prepared for every role. A boy raised in instability became an adult obsessed with structure and discipline.